This Week in 40K.
Welcome to This Week in 40K, the show about the grim dark that is neither grim nor dark. I'm Billy Heilman, and I am your host. Welcome back, everybody, to the first This Week of 40K for the year 2024. Still definitely the future. 2025 is going to really feel like the future, but we made it another complete revolution around the sun, so congrats to everyone for that. Start out with a little bit of life stuff still here in Tucson, as you can see from this background that is an actual background. Here for one more of these shows and then heading back to lovely Northern California. Very much enjoyed the holidays with my family. My sister and her family came out here, and while the house was very full, it was largely very full of love and as minimal frustrations as possible, given 3 of the 9 human beings were under the age of 9, and there was a pig. So that was wonderful, great time over Christmas and New Year's. Many wonderful gifts, smiles, memories, photos were taken. We skipped the past 2 weeks because, quite frankly, there was basically nothing to talk about in the land of 40Kdom. This week, we are starting to actually get some events going, so we will spend much of today talking about that. And I will talk a little bit about why news is probably going to wait 2 weeks for anything truly meaningful to happen on that front. Other things that we generally ramble about at the start of the show is the football season. So congrats to the University of Michigan. Go Blue. You won your first national championship in probably most of your students' lifetimes. So that was fun. Sorry to everyone in the Pacific Northwest that your team turned into a pumpkin. Honestly, less fun game than anyone really was hoping for, unless you're a Michigan fan, in which case, obviously, it was enjoyable. 49ers have the number 1 overall seed in the playoffs. That is very exciting. My happiness is unpleasantly directly tied to the outcome of those games. So we'll be seeing how that does. And then finally, an actual bit tied back into the Discord. The Best in Tabletop Fantasy Football League came to its culmination this past week. And yay, I won! Second I win announcement on this channel. First was for an RTT, second is for fantasy football. One of these days, I'll actually win something that's fundamentally meaningful to my ability to be a trusted voice in this community, but actually that will probably never happen because having the time to prep for a GT is just low when you have children and responsibilities. So we'll see. But overall, life is going well. The world is, not conspiring against me at the moment. And there's a lot of interesting stuff to discuss in the 40K universe. So let's move into that.
Our top story.
So our top story is that 40K is back in 2024 and that this program is absolutely definitely not turning into an old world podcast. That is true. I learned my lesson well over a decade ago that I have only the time, energy, and financial resources to support one Games Workshop game. And it is my deep and abiding intention for that to remain Warhammer 40,000, not Warhammer the Old World. Despite the fact that I have a complete High Elves collection that will allow me to get a few games in. I do plan on getting the books, learning about it, and reading it. It seems like they've done a wonderful job with the game. I'm curious to see how it goes, but ultimately I have built my community is 40K, not the Old World, and while I'm sure I will dabble, I will remain true here. The reason that's the main news story for this week is that news is largely taking a break in 40K, at least for another week or two. Not this coming weekend, but the following weekend is going to be LVO. Previously, the absolute culmination of the year in 40K. Now with the World Championships, just probably the main social event of the year in 40K, but definitely a time when Games Workshop is planning on doing a lot of previews and newsing. There has been very little 40K news coming out in the past month, honestly. We got the previews of what those Dark Angels are going to look like. It looks very exciting. I am curious to see what the rules for them are because the miniatures look great. And, I personally did dabble in Dark Angels with the new Vanguard stuff. Marines are going to be one of the armies that have the most layered rules in 40K. And the more rules you add on top, the more likely it is something slips through the cracks in terms of what GW intended versus what they actually wrote. And those are fun times to be able to pounce on things and get some good results with them. So it is very likely that I will, I will absolutely take a look and see what the Dark Angels rules are. I might end up playing them a little bit. There are some very vague rumors that Custodes are next up on the docket on that front, which, given my dalliance this summer is also something I've been looking to. But we won't get all of those, what is the word? Not rumors, reveals. Reveals is the R word I was looking for, until LVO is the Thursday of LVO. So not this Thursday, but next Thursday, 9 p.m. Pacific. All sorts of different times all over the world. That's when that's going to be coming out. So not this episode, not next episode, but the episode following should be chock full of news. That said, there are quite a few events that we have to discuss. So we'll go through that. This episode, there were 7 events that were large enough to be meaningful to discuss. Relatively interesting spread of armies that finished in those. And so we'll go through that. I'll share my thoughts, and then probably, if I had to guess, a slightly shorter than an hour episode this week, slightly shorter than an hour episode next week, and then when I am back in California, the triumphant return of the hour-long podcasts or video casts with both news and event coverage. So let's move on to what's winning.
What's winning?
The first event that we are going to talk about is the Glass City GT in Toledo, Ohio. It was 78 players. It was 5 rounds. It was won by Folger Piles with Eldari. I was not quite as diligent with my preparation, so you're going to see me opening up lists as we go through this rather than just reading them off on my sheet. Folger had Wayleaper, Fugan, Spirit Seer, Incarn, 1, 2, 3 Night Spinners, 5 Rangers, 2x5 Swooping Hawks, 2x5 Warp Spiders, and 10 Wraithguard. My best practice partner has been getting back into things and is asking me what to do with Eldar. That's exactly what I would do with Eldar. 3 Night Spinners, Wraithguard Brick, Incarn, rest of its mission playing tools. Congrats, Folger. You brought what is probably the best army, at least, down the center of anything in the game right now, and won the largest event of the week. So congrats, Folger. Randy Brigham with Necrons. Necrons is a fun thing because Necrons is new. Let's take a look at what Randy brought. Canoptic Court. So that's the one that gives reroll 1s or reroll everything to all your Canoptic stuff, which is probably going to be most of the things that you bring. So Chronomancer, Nightbringer, Void Dragon. Is there one more? Catan? No. So those are the only 2 Catan. Illuminators, Sazaras. 2 Overlords with Translocation Shrouds. That lets their units sort of fly. 1 Plasmancer and 2 Technomancers. 2x10 Immortals. That's probably where those Overlords are going. And then we have 2 Canoptic Wraith units. The Technomancers are what can go with them. Dimensional Sanctum, I bet you, is the one that lets them infiltrate, because 6 Wraiths infiltrating does hurt. 1 Locust Destroyer and 2x3 Tomb Blades. So this is probably the broad strokes of what you're going to see with a lot of Necrons. At least 2 of the big Catan, because with a 4-up invuln, 5-up feel no pain, and reducing damage by half, they are going to be very challenging to kill, at least kill efficiently. And then the Wraiths are really good, especially if they can get full hit rerolls, a lot of AP2 damage to melee. This is a good pressure list that has the 2x3 Tomb Blades and the Locust Destroyer in the back to move around, do missions. Overall, very good list by Randy. We have Manic Manic Gudamani with Tyranids. What did Manic bring? Manic brought a Vanguard, so 3 Broodlords. Oh, please tell me we're getting a lot of Gene Stealers. 1 Death Leaper, 1 Winged Hive Tyrant, 2x10 Gargoyles, 1 Biovore, 2 Exocrines, 30 Gene Stealers in 3 units of 10, 1 Lictor, 3 Neurolictors, and 1 Von Ryan's Leapers. This is a delightful list that is going to run very fast, try to punch you in the face, and try to make it so that Gene Stealers actually have melee punch. I don't know about 17 point per model Gene Stealers, but you know what? Manic went 4-1 with them. Gene Stealer list, at least viable to that level. Finally, we have Conan Jennings with World Eaters, some of the most straightforward lists to read because there's just not that much you can do with the amount of points that you have available. So we got, not points, data sheets. We got Angron, we got Karn, we got Lord Invocatus, we got a Lord on a Pig, we got a Master of Executions, 10 Jackals, 10 and 5 Berserkers, 2 Rhinos, 3 8-bound, 3 and 6 Exalted 8-bound. That does seem to be the list that everyone is running. It will run up, it will punch you in the face, and if you know what you're doing in the close combat phase, it's very good. Also, if you can make sure that Angron comes back every single time, very good. So that's what we got in Glass City. The standard Eldari list, Canoptic Necrons, Vanguard Nids, which is kind of interesting, and World Eaters. So the rumors of Close Combat's death are greatly exaggerated because 3 of those 4 lists want to run up and punch you in the face. And one of them is really hostile to that. And that's the one that won. But, we can't have everything. I'll be checking in periodically on comments, but sorry, given how I have to do this, I only get to see that one at a time. So next up, we have Denver 40K Fight Club January Open, kept in Denver, Colorado. 78 players, 6 rounds. This one won by Colin K. with Adaptus Sororitas. It is, it took a while for people to figure out Sisters, but points went down enough and they are killy enough and there are people who are dedicated enough that it works. So we have a Dialogus, Morven, a Palatine, a Preacher, and a Triumph. No Celestine. You do have the Palatine with the super killy sword, so you got that piece. 10 Sisters, 2 Rhinos, 30 Arcoflagellants, 3x2 Crusaders, 2 Death Cult Assassins, 1, 2, 3 Exorcists, 3 Nundums, a Calidus, and a Vindicare Assassin. So 30 Arcoflagellants, 3 Exorcists, that's the math part of the list. You have some good characters in there that actually allow your sisters to punch up, and then a bunch of tiny runaround mission playing tools with the Crusaders, Death Cults, and the 2 Assassins. That's sort of what you're seeing in 10th is you have your hardcore of killy, your fast expendable missiony, and if you can manage to fit all of that into one list, you have a stew, as Carl Weathers would say. Yes, that's who I'm looking for. Brett Perkins, second place with Necrons. Let's see if Brett also brought Canoptic Court. View list. Or excuse me, Cryptek Court. Yes. Necron Cryptek Court is the army list name that Brett came up with, but it is a Canoptic Court. I did have that right. So we got a Chronomancer, Sazerac, Imhotep, 1 Overlord with Translocation Shroud, 1 Plasmancer, and 2 Technomancers. No Catans. 3 Immortals in 3 units of 10. 1, 2, 3 Canoptic Doomstalkers. Reanimator, only 1 unit of 6 Wraiths. 2x5 Death Marks and 2x3 Tomb Blades. So what we have here from Brett is quite a bit more, honestly, with the Immortals, and no Catan. I'd be very curious to hear Brett's thoughts on that. But Canoptic Court, definitely the place that Necron players are starting. Next, we have Brandon Roddy with Dark Angels. Let's see if they're really Dark Angels. They are in a Vanguard. So we have an Ancient and Terminator armor, a Librarian and Phobos armor, 2 3s of Centurion Devastators, 1 Deathwing Command Squad, Those are the Terminator Deathwing guys. 3 Eliminators, 1 Gladiator Lancer, 1 6-man Inceptor squad with Plasma, 2 more small Inceptors, 3 mans with Plasma, 1 Infiltrator, 2 Scouts, 2 Whirlwinds, and a Calidus Assassin. So this is taking, instead of Deathwing Knights, you have the Deathwing Command Squad, Centurion Devastators in small squads as opposed to the one big one. I think personally, I would say the better way to do Vanguard that's been discovered is the Ultramarines, which we'll get to a little bit later with John Lennon, but Brandon very nicely done there with his Dark Angels. Now, Ben Neal in 4th place, even though he was undefeated, so it's a little weird. They must have done. No, that's just weird. I have no idea why Brandon is undefeated and yet not in 1st place. Maybe they did overall battle points because he had a 66 in there and that's a little low. Who knows? Ben Neal with Ultramarines went undefeated, and this is the Vanguard. So let's see. Apothecary Biologist with the Blade Driven Deep. Librarian Phobos armor. We have Marnius and we have Uriel Ventress. Yeah, this is largely going to be the John Lennon list. We have 6 Aggressors. We have 6 Centurion Devastators. That the set Dev Sense are the ones that are going to be Deep Struck with Uriel. The Biologist has Blade Driven Deep so that the aggressors can be infiltrated. Company Heroes, which did get updated so that I believe Marnius can join them. Marnius could also just join the aggressors. Uriel joins the Company Heroes. 2 Lancers, 1 big Inceptor with bolters, 1 small with bolters, 5 Infiltrators, 1 Scout, and a Calidus Assassin. I think this is generally considered to be the slightly stronger way to do Vanguard. Having Uriel give the Dev Sense actual deep strike means that when you pop them up off the board, they can come down anywhere as opposed to off the board edge. That's a real big increase in their shooting lanes. Marnius giving you the extra command points and really jacking up what that aggressor squad can do, because you don't want to deploy it too close because you could go second, but Marnius lets them always advance and shoot and charge, and so their threat range becomes huge. Big fan of this list. So next, that is the Denver 40K Fight Club January Open. So congrats to all there. We have next a Grimdark New Year's 40K in Valdosta, Georgia, 65 players, 5 rounds. KR Quintero is telling me Ben Neal was 5-0 and had to drop before game 6. That's why Ben didn't win, because Ben only played 5 games. If I had personally, for my take, Ben had the most powerful list there, and Ben is a player whose name comes up, so certainly had the player skill to get there. But congrats to all who went there, and thank you, KR Quintero, for the update. So at the Grimdark New Year's 40K GT, I said we were going to talk about John Lennon's list. That's because John Lennon won this event with Ultramarines, which when I click through, will tell me it's a Vanguard. It does. Yay, I get to sound smart. So we have Apothecary Biologist, Marnius Calgar, and Uriel, the 6 Aggressors, the 6 Dev Sense, the Company of Heroes. John likes his 2 small Eradicators. Those are nice little coming off the side mission playing tools. 2 big Inceptors, both with Plasma, and a small one with Bolters. 1, 2, 3 Scout Squads, and a Calidus Assassin. This is scary. This has tons of mission play, but also 4 units that are absolutely horrifying. And the Company Heroes is a nice little 5th, going to hang around till late. You cannot sit on Eradicators that come in off the board edge and melt you. The 3 Scout Squads, especially with someone at John's skill level in terms of his ability to trade space for time with them. I would actually argue that if at the top level of skill, this is the strongest army in the game. I think you have to know what to do with it. And there are some other armies that are a little bit, that you can maximize the effectiveness of a little bit more point and clicky, like the Chaos Space Marines, like Eldar. Not to say that those aren't good, just that they are a little bit more straightforward in how to apply their power. This one, you need to be able to see a few turns ahead in the game, but if you can, this has more tools that are attached to its power units as opposed to those two things being separated. So big, huge fan of John's list, and obviously John himself. Congrats on the Grim Dark New Year's 40K GT win. Charles Barber came in second with, hey, we just talked about Chaos Space Marines, and hey, next we're going to talk about Eldari. Let's see what Charles and then Z in third place brought. Charles brought 1, 2, 3 Chaos Lords. I bet you those lead Chosen. Charles brought 1, 2, 3 Dark Communes. I bet you those lead Accursed Cultists. 1 Cultist Mob, 3 Rhinos. They're all Nurgle. Nurgle Rhinos are just ridiculous because not being able to shoot Rhinos is freaking annoying. Yep, 3 big Accursed Cultist squads, 3 5-man Chosens, 2 Forge Fiends, 2 3s of Nurglings. This is right up at the top of what you can do with Chaos Space Marines. And Charles sort of eat, skeet, delete is the name of his list. That's what this does. This pushes at you, and the math on this army is obscene. That said, it really only has 1 speed, which is all gas, no brakes, come at you. I mean, there are things that you can do with the Accursed Cultists, especially because they regenerate, and that can lead to some really fun things because they regenerate in the same time you check who controls an objective, and since it's your turn, you control the order of those things. So there's definitely some tricks to it, but it's also just like a horrific set of math coming at you that if you don't have a plan for, you're going to lose. John's list very much has a plan for this, and that's, I think, a big chunk of why John was able to win, although the two of them did not play. But still, if you're playing Chaos, this is the starting point. You have a lot of different ways to make it worse. I know I've tried by throwing in Abaddon and Noise Marines, and it is probably worse. It is a little bit more fun, but yeah, Chosen, Accursed Cultists, some Forge Fiends, some Nurglings, go to town. Z Martin, third place with Eldari. Also, none of these top 3 players played each other, so just keep that in mind in terms of results. Zdar, one of these things is not like the others. So let's see what Z did that's not like the others. Autark, Farseer Skyrunner. That is a little different. You don't normally see that. Oh, okay. We brought a non-Inari. Sorry, this is a regular Autark, not a Way Leaper. That's interesting. Farseer Skyrunner, Fugan, Vizark, Ivrain. Okay, Z, full credit, weird and interesting. We have 10 Storm Guardians, a Wave Serpent, 1, 2 Falcons with 3 Fire Dragon units, 1, 2, 3 Rangers, 2 D Cannons, 2x5 Swooping Hawks, and a big troop of clowns. That's probably where Ivrain and the Vizark are going. Okay, full credit to Z. This thing is not like the others. There are 0 Night Spinners in here. There is 0 Avatars or Incarns, 0 Wraithguard with the cannons. We have seen Fire Dragons and Falcons be a thing that, despite, especially once you put a character in there, is well over 300 points. But, those are nice tools that will delete a small section of the board. You still have all of your various mission playing tools and the Rangers, 3 units of Rangers, the 2 units of Swooping Hawks. Those things can be wherever the heck they want. D cannons, even at 125 points, still very good. So there's a lot of power in here, but just, one of these things and being not like the others. So congrats to Z on third place with an Eldar list that was not just the same thing we see all the time. And then finally, Kyle Jackling, who it looks like played Z in the 4th round, and they tied with 75 points apiece. Kyle brought Admech. What does Admech look like these days? Admech looks like a Skitarii Hunter cohort. So, a lot of Skitaris. You got 3 Marshals, 1 Tech Priest Dominus, 1 Manipulus, and 2 Techno Archaeologists. We have 110 of Rangers. We have 1, 2, 3 10s of Vanguard, 12 Breachers, 6 and 6. 5, 5, and 10 of the Sterilizers. Those are the flat. I apologize. 2 5s of Sky Stalkers. Oh, right, because you can do Carbine Flappy Boys. Those are the Sky Stalkers. And then Flamer Flappy Boys. Those are the Sterilizers. So we have 2 5s of the Carbine Flappy Boys, 3 10s of the Flamer Flappy Boys, 3 Cerberus Raiders. Those are the Doggos. 5 Infiltrators, and 1 Dragoon with a Jezzel, which is the cheapest way to do it, I believe. So that is a lot of Flappy Boys. Can be all over the board. You got the Breachers for a little bit of a hardcore, that can actually do some damage. Some Vanguard. This is a lot of bodies that can be in a lot of places. I'm curious to see if this is something that gets picked up. I'm not sure that it would be an incredibly pleasant army to play against, that many Flappy Boys. Those models, just picking them up and putting them down can take a while. But a very interesting take. So good job to Kyle on 4th place with AdMech. We got 4 more events, and we're about halfway through the show. So decent amount of time we're going to spend here today. We have my favoritely named event of the weekend, and that requires me to take a sip of coffee. So we have Exterminatus 8, Rise of the Noodle from Wagga Wagga, Australia. 63 players, 5 rounds. If anyone knows why it was called Rise of the Noodle, and the answer is remotely family friendly, please do share. Also, Wagga Wagga is a phenomenal place name. So good on you, Australia, on keeping up with things. In the first place, we have Tim Neal with Custodes. Let's see what Tim did, that wild and crazy man, acknowledging that everything in Australia is a little bit different. So we got 1 Trajan, 4 Custodian Guard, 5 and 5 Custodian Guard, 1 tank, 2 6s of Venatari, 6s of Venatari, very nice, 3 Witch Seekers, and an Eversor Assassin. Okay, sure. Don't really know what to say here. The big thing here is the 2 6s of Venatari. Those are either movement 10 or free rapid insertion, depending on mission and deployments. Those will be scary to get up in you. I bet you if they were using Trajan, they were ruling that his aura works, because otherwise you probably don't take him for the points. But if it does, that really jacks up the damage that especially him and some Custodian Guard can do. 1 tank has me a little nervous about opening up any transports, but Tim managed to win, and congrats to Tim. There were rumored points that were shown about Custodes. No one knows if they're true or not. I would love them to be, because it was mostly point drops. And I enjoyed playing that army. So here's hoping that when Custodes are finally released, they get to be fun again. In 2nd place, we have Alexander Engelzos. Engelzos, I think that's right, with AdMech. Let's see if Alexander did something similar with AdMech. Alexander was also a Skitarii Hunter cohort. Alexander's army list is I hate myself. Alexander, you're a good person, probably. We got 3 Marshals as characters. We have 1 10 of Rangers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 60 Vanguard. 1, 2, 3, 4 Scorpius Dune Riders. 2 5s of the Carbine Flappy Boys, 3 10s of the Flamer Flappy Boys, 3 3s of the Doggos, 1 unit of 5 Infiltrators, an Assassin, and Chirodraxis, which makes things untargetable. Yeah, okay. What did I decide this person's name was? Alexander. I understand why you say you hate yourself. That's a lot of models to move around. That's a lot of Flappy Boys. So 30 Flappy Boys with the Flamers, and then 10 more without. Thing to know about going forward. So congrats to Alexander with your second place. William Wyckoff with Votan. What do the dwarves do these days? One Iron Master with the list of everything that it can possibly take that's 14 lines long. 2 calls. 1 unit of warriors. 4 Sagatars. Okay. 6 Thunderkin. 2 5s of Berserkers. 2 10s of Hearthguard with plasma and one has Volkite, but Volkite. One has plasma, and then 1, 2, 3 units of 3 bikes. So more mechanized because of the Sagatars, and then bikes, good and interesting. Really looking forward to whenever they get their actual codex so we can see a fully fleshed out Votan. But Votan in third, and then in fourth, Rowan Kennett with Tyranids. We have another Vanguard, Deathleaper, Neuro Tyrant, 2 Winged Tyranid Primes, 2 10s of Gargoyles, 1 Biovore, 2 Exocrines, 1 Maliceptor, 2 Molochs, 2 Neurolictors, 1 Pyrovore, 2 Ripper Swarms, 2 6s of Tyranid Melee Warriors, and 1 6 of Von Ryan's Leapers. Good combo of shooting, counting the psychic as shooting, some deep strikey threats, some fast things. Overall, just a good list. As his army name says, only strength 5, AP 2, damage 1. Don't worry about it. You get enough of that, you can start to worry. That is the Exterminatus 8, Rise of the Noodle from Down Under. So congrats to all of them. In a very different part of the world, we have the Vienna Tabletop Championship in Vienna, Austria. 62 players, 5 rounds. Another sip of coffee. And my sharing that Vienna is a lovely city to visit. Just one of the most well-kept cities I've ever visited. It's like visiting that friend's house where everything is out of a super nice catalog and in its place, and you know that you're in a place of taste and refinement. Maybe not the most comfortable place to be, but taste and refinement. That said, speaking of taste and refinement, Kevin Zollinger won with Goths. So let's see what orcs look like these days. Orcs look like a slow load. Well, okay, cool. It is entirely possible that the Vienna Tabletop Championships did not unhide their lists. And I cannot tell you what Kevin's list looks like because players' lists remain hidden. For further information, contact the TO. Let's see if that happened also for Thomas Woback. Nope, Thomas, you can see. Original list, do not steal. It's Eldar. Let's see how original. 1 Wayleaper, 1 Farseer, 1 Fugan, 1 Spiritseer, 1 Yinkarn, 5 Fire Dragons, 1, 2, 3 Night Spinners, a unit of Rangers, a unit of Super Hawks, a Warwalker, and some Wraithguard. So your Fire Dragons are hoofing it. You have a Warwalker in there, and that is the originality that our good friend, who is not, I've actually never met the man, I assume man, Thomas Woback brought. Congrats, Thomas. Second place with Eldar. Dominic Tavernero came in third place with Chaos Space Marines. Let's see. We only have 2 Chaos Lords. We only have 1 Dark Commune and a Master of Execution. Got a Cultist Mob. 2 Rhinos. 1 Accursed Cultist unit. 2 3 5s of Chosen. They are all 5s. 1 Forge Fiend, 2x2 Obliterators, 5 Warp Talons, 3 Nurglings, 5 Rubric Marines with the Flamers and Soul Reaper Cannon, Celeste, and the Changeling. All right, so like I said, this is one of the ways that you can change things. Whether the Obliterators and the various allies are better than just more of what you have before, they are different. They let you solve slightly different problems in slightly different ways. Congrats to Dominic with his Chaos Space Marines. Chosen Accursed Cultists as the starting point. Move from there. We have Clemens Karzech with Necrons. Let's see what Clemens brought. Canoptic Court, a Nightbringer, a Void Dragon, 1 Plasmancer, 2 Technomancers, and that Transcendent Catan for the 3 Catan goodness. We have 10 Immortals, 1, 2 Doomstalkers, 2 6s of Wraiths, 5 and 5 Death Marks. So 2 5s of Death Marks as your mission playing stuff. Throwing in the 3rd Catan definitely eats into where your stuff can be on the board. But 3 of them are 3 Catan are going to let you be in a lot of places on the board just from the Catan. The Wraiths for early pressure, Doomstalkers are also good units, and Death Marks are fun mission playing tools that also can hit a little bit harder than you think before someone explains to you all of the various things they can do. So, congrats on Clemens. Canoptic Court, definitely the starting point for all you Necron players out there. 2 more events. We're going to get through this. We got the Hammer in the New Year 2024 in Ashburn, Virginia. 45 players, 5 rounds. Won by Jeffrey Kolodner with Adeptus Sororitas. Jeffrey, one of the early adopters of Sisters. And Jeffrey also names all of his characters, but fortunately does so in a relatively easy to read manner. So if you're going to do that, be like Jeffrey. Don't make it impossible to read. We have an Imagifier, we have a Junith, we have a Morven, we have a Palatine with the sword, and we have a Missionary. 1, 2, 3, 4 Battle Sister squads. Okay. Paying attention. 1, 2 Immolators, 1 Rhino, 1 Retributor, 5, 2 Castigators, 2 Solo Mortifiers, 3 Paragon Warsuits, however many Sister Novitiates are fit in a unit, 2 of Crusaders, and a Calidus Assassin. So no Arcoflagellants, no Exorcists, just a lot of the other, and no Zephyrim Seraphim. So everything's on the ground, and there's a good amount of sisterage in here. Decent number of tank hulls as well. 1, 2 Immolators, Rhino, 2 Castigators, so like 5 tanks. This is an army that looks like what a White Dwarf would put together, but played by Jeffrey. Jeffrey understands Sisters well, as we can tell from his results. So take a look, OE Sisters players, and maybe draw some inspiration. Speaking of Sisters, Austin Wingfield. Looks like Austin also brought Sisters, or just only, brought Sisters as well. We have 2 Dialogus, 1 Junith, 1 Missionary, Morven, Palatine with the sword, Celestine, and the Triumph. Triumph's only 125 points these days. That's interesting. 1 Battle Sisters squad, 1 Immolator, 3 Castigators, 10 Sacrosants, 2x2 Crusaders, 1 Exorcist, 3 Nundums, 5 Retributors, and 5 Seraphim. So the 3 Castigators is the really interesting thing in this list. Good chunk, I think almost every single one of the named characters is in here as well. Junith, Morven, and Celestine, and the Triumph. So a lot heavier on the character contingent in this one. But yeah, just an interesting list. Sisters doing well over there in Virginia. Charles Craig brought World Eaters for 3rd place. What did Charles do here? Charles has Ingron, Lord of Mikatis, and Master of Execution. No Lord on Piggy, no Karn. Okay. 10 Jackals, 5 Berserkers, 1 Rhino, 1, 2 6s of Exalted 8 Bounds, 2 World Eater Land Raiders. Okay. So those 8-bound go in those Land Raiders. They come and they run at you fast. And as his army name says, Sir Slaps a lot. There will be many slaps with chain axes. Charles Craig, there you go. And then finally, Matt Shookman, 4th place with Azuriani. Matt Shookman, member of Art of War, member of Team USA. 2 Avatar version. Oh, man, after my own heart. Autarch Way Leaper, 1 Avatar, 1 Incarn, 1 Farseer, and 1 Fugan. 2 Fire Prisms. Okay, you don't see that as much anymore. 1 Night Spinner, 1 Ranger, 2 5s of Swooping Hawks, 1 Warwalker, and 5 Warp Spiders. When you do the 2 avatar version, you definitely lose on the ability to bring much of anything else because those guys are almost 700 points combined. I will admit to being interested in the double Fire Prism as opposed to triple Night Spinner. Matt is a better player than I, so I defer. Certainly, you in this version without the Wraithguard, you lack the ability to crack tanks, and Fire Prisms very much solve that problem. And the double avatar sort of handles that hold down threat in the midboard section that the Wraithguard do otherwise. So that's what Matt did. That's what happened in Virginia and Hammer in the new year. Excuse me. We have one more event, and that event is DEF CON 2024 Warhammer 40K in Östergötland, Sweden. Oster is, I think that's either the east or the west, but something about Gotlands. Andreas Holmes won with Orcs. Let's see what Andreas did with Orcs. We have a Captain Badrock, a Mozrog, 1 Beast Boss, 1 Naban Smash the Squig, and 2 War Bosses, 2 10s of Beast Boys, 10 Flash Gits, 2 10s of Gretchen, 1 2 5 of Knobs, 2 5s of Storm Boys, 6 Piggies, 1 Kill Rig, 3 Trucks. Sort of the standard of what you're seeing. Not quite super go wide, but pretty wide. Lots of fast ability to deliver things. Again, you're seeing very few foot troops that aren't either completely expendable, like the Vanguard or that Masked Sisters unit, or are in transports. So have a plan to deal with transports, people. That's it for my second cup of coffee. And that's what Orcs look like up in... I'm sorry, did we decide that this was in Sweden? It is in Sweden. Sebastian Larson, Chaos Space Marines. How many lords, how many dark communes? Fascinating questions all. The answer will be revealed. 2 dark communes, 2 big units of accursed cultists, 0 lords, 0 chosen, I imagine. 10 cultists, 2 obliterators, 2 forge fiends, 3 units of warp talons, all 5s, 3 war dog brigands, and 4 units of nurglings. Well then, all right. So you're getting the war dogs as opposed to the chosen, although Mark of Slaanesh warp talons can do a decent approximation of what those chosen can do, and a lot more shooting in this list. Between 3 brigands, 2 forge fiends, and the oblits, that's a lot of bullets that aren't actually bullets, but you know what I mean. And 2 accursed cultist units, those things do hit quite hard. So interesting job, Sebastian. Bjorn Eriksson with Chaos Knights. Count the war dogs. Boop-de-boo. Bjorn brought 1 war dog stalker, 1 2 3 4 5 6 war dog brigands, 1 2 3 4 5 carnivores, 1 2 3 units of nurglings, and the blue scribes. These are the good Chaos Knight doggos. Bring them. They are K-Orcanauts. Okay. Yeah. And finally, last list we're going to talk about today. David Klang with Necrons. Are we just sweeping with Canoptic Courts? We are. 1 Chronomancer, Nightbringer, Void Dragon, and 1 more Transcendent, 2 Technomancers, 1 Overlord with Translocation, 10 Immortals, 1 Doomstalker, 2 units of 3 Scarabs, 2 6 of Wraiths, 1 Locust Heavy Destroyer, and 3 Tomb Blades. Triple Catan, double Wraith is something you need to have a plan for. Assume they're going to have at least reroll 1s to, if not reroll anything, and have an idea in the back of your head for how you're going to deal with at least 2 Catan that have a 4-up, 5-up having damage. That is a problem to chew through for many armies, but you're going to have a plan for it. So that, my friends, is This Week in 40K for January 9th. Expect a relatively similar show next week where that is mostly focused on results, talking you through what to expect if you're going to LVO or what to expect if you're just like me following LVO from a distance. And then the week following that, I would imagine that the train of 40K news is going to pick up, And so we're going to cover that as is appropriate, with your regular updates of how my favorite American football team is doing, because I just enjoy sharing that. So with that, that has been This Week in 40K. Thank you all for listening and hope you have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.